Greetings! This is National Master Mike Saylor, and welcome to our fourth lecture on Rook and Pawn Endgames. Last time, we were talking about the Philidor draw, or the Philidor position. And this is the drawing technique for the side that is down the pawn if you're dealing with either a bishop or a center pawn. And the drawing technique for that is fairly simple. You take over the sixth rank to prevent the white king from advancing before the pawn. Then as soon as white will advance his pawn, the simple technique is simply to move the rook as far away as possible on the first rank. And now as white tries to make progress, all black does is just simply check the king, and as the king comes back, you just simply attack the pawn, and at no point can white make any progress at all. So it's just a very easy draw. Now, what I have found in my nearly 40 years of playing tournament chess is you rarely face the Philidor position, because normally the side that is up a pawn knows that that's a very easy draw for their opponent, and so they're going to try to do everything possible to transpose into some other type of positions that will maybe give at least better winning chances if black makes mistakes. So you take this position, for example, with black to move. Black now cannot set up that Philidor position. However, and at one time back in the 1800s, it was thought that this was actually a win for white. However, a chess player by the name of Karstead came up with a drawing technique in which you attack from the rear. So in this case, what black does is, since you can't set up the Philidor position, you are going to be attacking the pawn from, instead of the sixth rank, you're going to be attacking it from the rear. And so, for example, in this position, black would play rook to h1. White would, for example, go king to b6. And now what you do is you attack the passed pawn from the rear. And the reason you're doing that is this way the white king or the white rook always has to be defending it. Now, what happens is, if white would then say play king to c6 to try to set up a checkmate, then what black does is black's got two choices: to move the king towards the center or towards the side of the board. And you always want to move it towards the side of the board. And the reason for that we'll talk about here in a few moments. But now the drawing technique for this is to just continue to keep the rook attacking the passed pawn, and if the white king ever tries to get out of the way, you just simply check the king, and as it goes back, you just repeat the position. If the white king tries to go the other way, you check it. And since the king can't go towards the c7 square, king's just got to go back, and then you simply repeat it. Now, you can also white has a few other potential tries. One is to check the black king, and then the black king would go to its only square on c7. Now, as we see here, what this is going to do is, when the black king is on a7, it controls a lot of real key squares that the white king would actually like to be able to utilize. And so now there's several different ways for white to try to make progress. One is you could just simply move the king out of the way. Now here there's several ways that black could continue. One would be to just simply continue the checking like we had talked about before. Another way is you could actually move, king to b7 to have further control over the over the advance of the pawn. Another option is to try to move the rook so that it can maybe try to guard against some of the checks. But what you in these cases, it's so tempting for black to want to start checking with its rook. But in a case where if you're not going to be checkmated, which the defense is, you just sort of want to just keep the pressure on this pawn until it advances, and then once it advances, then you can go back to some of those techniques that we talked about. Another way is at some point white will want to move the rook so in a way that it can protect this pawn, so that the king can maybe try to get out of some of the checks. And in these cases, once that happens, then what black will do is we'll move the rook all the way to the farthest file, because now what black's going to do is start doing some of the checking that we saw earlier. And so basically some typical maneuvers is you can just now start checking the king, and if they ever it's natural for white to want to try to interpose, and at this point all you do is you want to make sure that you're never allowing white to trade rooks. For example, this would be a blunder, because then it allows the trade of rooks. But pretty much most of the other moves will draw. You can attack the pawn here. Otherwise, you can just simply move the rook all the way back and wait for white to at some point advance this pawn. What we find is it's nearly impossible for white to really make any progress in this. So they're just but the drawing technique is very similar to the Philidor's, only instead of the checks coming from behind, they're now going to be coming from the side. And what you're really just trying to do is I'll go back a few moves, is you're really just you're creating a situation where the minute that white will ever advance the pawn to c6, then it's going to be the same Philidor position where there's nowhere to hide. And that's one of the reasons why you want the king on the short side, and you want the rook on the far side. Because if you had it the other way around, where if you're trying to check the white king from the short side, well, then the white king has all sorts of maneuvers in which they can try to basically get in the way of the rook by attacking it, in order to gain time. So if we go back to that initial starting position here, the key things to remember is when you cannot actually set up the Philidor position, what you want to do is attack from the rear. And you want to make sure that you aren't actually just automatically checking, because when you check, all of a sudden, many of these positions can, not all of them, but many of them can either be wins, or they can lead to more opportunities for white. What you actually want to do is, instead of you want to sometimes just, novice players always seem to want to check. That's just, it's in blitz games, usually the check is the move you're going to do. But in these cases, it's important to just attack the pawn from behind, and this way it gives the white fewer options, because the king's always got to protect the pawn or have the rook protect it. And when you're doing that, it's much harder to make any progress. We'll be going into more variations of this in some future videos, but thank you for joining me. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like or subscribe button. Thank you.